this, okay? So I'll put the link, I'll put it on YouTube and I'll send you the link. So if you want to watch it, and so your screen and go to your paper, and here it says, okay, since Brexit, Euroscepticism has increased as majority member state of the EU, the UK has left the Union. At this point, it's important to study the impact of Europeanization on liberal democratic political participation. Liberal democracy is a type of democracy that puts every individual's liberty and rights as the most important factor. Yeah, you know, there's many different ways to approach the definition. I mean, one way I talked about in class, of course, last time was that a liberal political regime is one in which coercion is a minor form of method or means of a relationship. Fear and coercion. Force is a minor method by which the authorities control the public, and so that means controlling the public means persuading them, buying them off, everything but making them afraid that you're going to break their leg if you, or kill them if you don't, or somebody they love, or maybe fire them from their job if they don't act in the way you want them to act. So so that's another way of saying, you know, liberal democracy is a type of democracy that puts everybody's individual's liberties and rights the most important factor, because basically human rights law aims to protect people from abuse by the agents of the state, systematic abuse, and that means coercion, you know, using coercion to control people. So based on, so that brings us, again, do you think that, of course, then that becomes a problematic issue, because like we talked about in class, what people want and what people expect changes over the years, decades, generations, centuries. So people change and they have different expectations and desires that they seek to satisfy within society, within the community. And if the state agents are going to avoid using coercion to control them, something that was acceptable, like for example, well, let's stick with Europe. Women not having the right to vote. That was, I think Switzerland was one of the last countries to give women the right to vote. Like I think in the 70s, or maybe the 1990s, you could check. Oh, of course, 100 years ago, people generally, most people, not everybody, but most people didn't, well, not 100 years ago, 200 years ago, most people didn't expect women didn't expect the right to vote. So then women demanded the right to vote, and more demanded it, and it became an so the question is what does the European Union do in terms of affecting what people in Europe want and expect, and how does the European Union accommodate? How does Europeanization accommodate to those changing demands and expectations? Does it help or facilitate how the leaders of Russia, the leaders of Italy, the leaders of France, the leaders of Germany respond to what people want? And how does it shape what people want? I mean, that seems to be one element that a lot of nationalists don't like. Eurosceptics don't like, that the European Union is also changing the people inside the country, whether it's changing it by encouraging different people to move into the country from outside, also doing things like promoting, you know, progressive human rights issues, like trying to, you know, make it clear that LGBTQ people are equal, and you know, they really, you know, they should be treated equally, and that the European Union is encouraging that. So, you know, these are all different ways to approach the final exam question. So based on this value, it pursues multi-power coexistence, equality before the law, and freedom. Based on this definition, liberal democratic political participation is considered a phenomenon where all individuals participate in politics. Yeah, I mean, all citizens. I mean, typically everybody expects that, you know, 10-year-old children are not going to have the same rights as somebody who's 20 years old, right? But, you know, that age limit changes. I mean, you know, Americans got the right to vote from 18 up, I think in the 1968, 71, something like that. So, yeah, so typically it's this notion of citizens, right? So in this context, Europeanization has given more opportunities for the citizens of the member states to participate in politics. Yeah, in some sense of, I mean, like I said, there's different ways to look at it. You can say there's negative liberty, like freedom from abuse. But what does the European Union do in terms of maybe encouraging self-actualization? We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Does the European integration and Europeanization encourage and create more opportunities for people to acquire what, aside from safety and security, to acquire self-esteem, to acquire safety, security, love, self-esteem, and self-actualization along Maslow's hierarchy. Does European integration create more of opportunity structures, more resources for people? Because maybe that's positive liberty, positive liberalization, to allow people to develop their full capacities. And that's good, and ideally that's good not only for them, but it's good for the society, because you're allowing people to develop their full capacities and contribute more to society because they're utilizing all of their potential. That's the wonderful side of it, right? But of course, people are different, and some people are like we talked about that little diagram about. Well, I can pull it up here. I mean, that diagram I showed you of the of Maslow's hierarchy. If I can find it here without wasting too much time. Yeah, of course I'm gonna waste too much time. But I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of need. What did I do with that? Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, okay, there it is. So let me share screen again. So like, we talked about this in class, that this Maslow's hierarchy, and and then, people go through this, I mean, I think some people are born more disposed to engaging in nationalistic behavior than others. But, typically, I mean, there's a lot of people who feel threatened by this. And they feel threatened by this self-actualization because they tend to assume that, Germany is named Germany because it's for the Germans. And they just tend to assume, well, we know what a German is. He's blonde or blue-eyed, blonde, and Christian. And he's not somebody who's Muslim with darker skin. And they won't necessarily admit that. But in a world in which, you see, all of these people coming into Germany because of the four freedoms, freedom of goods, services, capital, and labor. And then you see these immigrants coming into Germany, and you see these people who are doing really well because they can speak English wonderfully as well as German and maybe another language, and they're making lots of money. But I'm a worker, like my dad was a worker and his grandfather was a worker, and now my job is not secure like it used to be, because we don't need as many workers. We need more, we need more journalists, we need more TikTok creators, we need more rocket engineers, we need more, accountants, we need more lawyers. We don't need more steel workers. So, I mean, these people respond by feeling like envy, right? A lot of these people are, envy is the feeling I have when I think you have something I want, and I'm envious of you because I think you got it unfairly. You don't act in the right way. I want to be like you. I want to have status. I want to have respect. I want to have recognition. I want to have money. But I'm a German, and I speak German, and I look German, and you don't, in terms of the stereotypes of a German. So I start feeling envious. And that's one of the elements of globalization, I think, that about this nationalistic patterns we're seeing in around the world, that these people, the core cultural group, the traditional core cultural group, are feeling under threatened by globalization, cosmopolitan, Ronald Inglehart's post-materialist values. And, so what, now going back to your paper, let me go back to your paper. So we talk about your paper here, and we have, so Europeanization might indeed create more opportunities. I mean, that's the claim in the book, that, as a consequence of European integration, the European economies have grown much more after 1945 than it would have if they had not created a single market. That there's more material wealth overall created, that there's more prosperity, and there's peace, and there's less capacity for suspicion and paranoia that emerges out of fear and ignorance, because European integration makes more transparent what's going on in each other's countries. So the Germans can see what's going on in France, and the French can see clearly what's going on in Germany. And they all admit that they're supposed to be able to do that. That's all part of what Europeanization is all about. And that's great. But then also other people have those motivations out of the fear and insecurity to their traditional status as being a traditional German or a traditional Italian, in terms of, and not doing so well in terms of what in 2021, we expect, you want to be a true, you have to have a college degree, first off. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, your conditions in these developed countries are increasingly looking not so good if you don't have at least a 4-year college degree. And, still only like in the United States, I don't know, only like 1/4 of everybody over 18 has got a 4-year college degree, 25%. So 75% do not. And it wasn't that long ago, I think it was in 1970, for the first time, over half of American adults, people over 18, in only 1970 did over half of them have a high school diploma. So that's 50 years ago. Only 50 years ago did we get up to the point. I'm 59, I'm 58, 59. So only, when I was 9, only at that point. So now, but now here we are. If you're going to be really, if you want to have a decent life, if you want to, you probably have to have a 4-year degree, not just a high school diploma. And so, and that bothers a lot of people, and they can't really tell you why. They can't tell you what the problem is. They just know that they're seeing a lot of people doing really, really, really well, and they're not moving forward. They might be moving backward insofar as, for example, they have a boy, like, I was a coal miner working in the Polish coal mines, making lots of decent income, and now my son, who's like me, he's not very bright, because we're just not a very, very, very bright family, and he can't get a coal mining job. He's got to work as a waiter at a restaurant and make a minimum, no money. And it's not fair. It's not fair, because those Polish miners, they were one of the cores of solidarity. They helped fight the communists, and now look at them. They're just, and then people react with a nationalistic behavior. So, and that's all part of Europeanization. Insofar as Europeanization is the European name for globalization, is the European form of globalization. It's not just a European thing, it's a global thing. So firstly, it's increased the participation in politics by allowing more political space for interest groups. Okay, yeah, that's good. Participate, right? Feel like, in terms of positive liberalism, like, well, I can't really do anything about this, but you can even on a minimal level, insofar as there's more elections now. There's European Parliament elections, so you have another. At the very minimum, you have another election you can participate in to express your views, to feel like you have a voice. So that's like at a minimal level. By the way, I make a suggestion. Either one's okay. It's up to you. I mean, I just don't want to just tell you how I would write the paper, because because one of my tasks is to help you polish your English, your wonderful English, to polish it further. So I can't just tell you. I shouldn't just tell you how I would write it, because students don't really learn this so much. They should choose how they want to say something. So either way is okay. So the interest group got more opportunities to assert their argument, get more political attention as they work at the EU or the European Union level. Either one's all right. This is evident since the political opportunity they could not get in their nation was allowed by the European Union, or facilitated or increased. Not too much. I mean, that was a point made in the book, right? That trade unions, interest groups didn't suddenly become Europeanized in Germany or France or Italy. when European integration happened. If they had a history of being internationally focused, then they were more likely to exploit that. But they typically, that was the point that was made. Let's not overestimate the extent to which Europeanization has made interest groups European. There has been elements, they highlight them, like, for example, truck drivers. Truck drivers have to be international. They transport goods on trucks across Europe. So they've always been international in their orientation. So yeah, what was the point that they made? For example, middle level size companies in Germany don't form middle level size companies, European lobby groups. The big corporations do, because they've always been involved in all of Europe. Even before European Union, they were involved in all of Europe, right? That's one element. The political opportunity that they could not get in their nation was allowed by the European. This evidence, since the Maastricht Treaty came into force, as the protest and social movements has increased strongly. Some might say that Brexit shows or demonstrates, either way, that, yeah, I mean, that's a point that I come to at the end of the paper, right? That it's paradoxical or ironical that basically the European Union has legitimated nationalism, including its European form, Euroscepticism, and therefore, and provided a framework, institutional framework for expressing that, which makes it easier for the nationalists to be nationalistic because they have a platform. They have an institutional platform to be nationalistic. And the best example, or one of the clear examples of that, is Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom Independence Party that led the Brexit effort. He got elected to the European Parliament in 1979, and he used the European Parliament as his platform to mock, attack, ridicule the European Union and the people in it and the officials. You can go to YouTube, and they're all there. Nigel Farage mocking people, insulting them, mocking the European Union, attacking the European, and he used the European Union to do it. He was a member of the European Parliament. I mean, I mean, in a sense, the European Union shaped and developed Brexit to make it more feasible to do Brexit. But of course, as the European Union institutions developed, as the European Parliament developed, it made Brexit, it institutionalized this nationalism. That, these people who are participating, who feel threatened by European integration, they're also using the European Union and exploiting the opportunities the European Union provides to express their nationalism. Because remember, we said nationalism associates with these values, right? It tends to associate with these mid-level values. And this thing, it doesn't, you have to restart every time I shift a file. But yeah, so I make that point, right? If the Brexiters were an interest group, and you did not encourage them to remain in the EU, they even used that. So yeah, so their rights were protected by the European Union. Yeah, I mean, there was some, they make this point that, yeah, but I mean, like even then, I mean, they make comments about how, there was a common strike among, I think it was automobile workers in 2 factories in 2 different countries. We see a European Union labor movement. And that happens, but when it happens, it's a big event because people are looking for something like that to emerge, but it's not that common. And yeah, they form a European Union Trade Union Confederation, but there's like I can't remember a general European strike ever being organized. It doesn't come to mind right now. I can't remember, ever recall reading in the news a general European strike among all European steelworkers, or many it's always the German steelworkers or the French steelworkers or the Italian. I mean, there's never a general, this is just a coordinating body where people come together and talk about what they're doing, but they never organize an international European strike. Not that I mean, if I can't remember it happening. There may be maybe one case. There was something just a few years ago. I've been here in Korea about something was done regarding a strike in two factories in two different countries going on at the same time, and it was like one time. So just to go on here, another factor that needs to be emphasized is devolution of member states of the EU. Devolution is a process of power transition from the central government to subnational authorities. Therefore, devolution allows more liberty to participate in politics by the individual. Some say that the adaptation of pressure to the member state after not show that the EU is not in support for regional independence and rather participate. Yep, to the member states after. Some say. I mean, you know, what I think you're saying here, what do they say in the book? They say in the book that typically again, Europeanization has not led to a big boost in the power of the regions. It only reinforces trends that were already there. So Catalonia has always had a problem with the central government in Spain, in Madrid. All right, so they fought a war. I mean, hundreds of people were killed. Franco came to power in the 1930s partly because of hostility to Catalan nationalism. So there was a long history of conflict between Madrid and Barcelona before the European Union got involved. But that's Spain. That's the nature of Spain. It's the nature of Germany. That counts much more than what the European Union has ever done in terms of encouraging regionalization. I mean, I mean, we talk about how in Bulgaria, the European Union they officially encourage regional governments to be established because they have to have a regional government to work with to develop the poor regions of the countries and the cohesion policies, and also in the agricultural policies to some extent. But they make it sound very technical. The case of Scottish nationalism, that emerged in the early 1970s, even before the European Union Britain joined the European Union. And there was I'm sure, you know, when Britain joined the European Union, that encouraged the Scottish nationalists to dream bigger dreams. That, wow, we don't need to be part of the United Kingdom to be a part of the European Union. But then, of course, like we talked about how they voted more than once on whether or not to leave Britain. I think that was the second or time that they voted to leave, and they voted. The referendum in 1997 was a referendum not to leave the United Kingdom. It was just a referendum to I stay here. Officially, the EU did not support the Scottish nationalists' wish to leave the European Union in 2014 referendum. The EU leadership publicly disavowed EU support for Scottish independence at the time. The EU reminded the Scottish nationalists that if they succeeded in leaving the UK, then Scotland would have to apply to join the EU, and accession would take some time. Scotland would not automatically remain a member of the European Union. And then and there was a referendum for Scotland on whether or not to reestablish, officially what they describe it as reinstating the Scottish Parliament that voted itself out of existence in 1707, and instead have representation in the Parliament in London. And Scotland, Ireland, and England already shared the same king since 1603, and who was powerful at this time. So, and then of course they had the referendum in 2014 and they voted no. It wasn't even that close. It was 55 to 44% not to leave the UK. Now they're pushing it again, and I don't think there's gonna vote to leave. I mean, there's only 5 million Scots. They're gonna put a hard border between Scotland and England. Scotland, you know, it must be 80% of its trade must be with England. So it's like European integration, you know, encourages some people in the elite in Catalonia or some people in the elite in Scotland to dream this dream. But then if there isn't a systemic predisposition already there European Union doesn't really change the balance of power too much between the central government and the regions. So we go on here. This is a significant, as David Lucian mentioned, doing rally. So yeah, so I think that the point that, and other people came up with a point similar to here, that the paper highlights that nationalist populism takes the form of Brexit, Euroscepticism more generally. Thereby, nationalism in Europe is at least as guided, more effectively regulated, and contained thanks to Europeanization. So, before European Union existed, there, of course, nationalism existed. But there was, the world was seen as a more fearful, unregulated, unmanaged place. So there's a lot more uncertainty, ignorance, which means fear, suspicion, paranoia, and conflict spirals. But now you have this European Union integration. And so even European nationalism is, in a sense, transparent, regulated. It facilitates communication. So like everybody knows what Euroscepticism is in Europe. Whether you're a French nationalist or an Italian nationalist, or you belong to the Alternative for Germany party, if you say Euroscepticism, everybody sort of knows what that is. So in other words, it's easier to talk to people. It's easy for people to talk, to communicate. And if it's easier to communicate, it reduces the level of fear and insecurity, which then the authorities might respond to by increasing somehow censorship. Even at worst case, as things more likely risk spiraling out of control and destabilizing the regime, then they start responding with coercion and fear and the police. So in a sense, yeah, that's what I point out here, right? Thereby, nationalism in Europe at least is guided and more effectively regulated and contained thanks to Europeanization, European integration. Thus, nationalisms among the people of Europe are less likely to react to each other, intensifying suspicion, fear, and hatred, and spiral out of control, as this dynamic has done many times leading up to the wars in the 20th century. It happened again on a smaller scale in Yugoslavia, right? That, when Tito died in 1980, the system started falling apart. They had institutions in place, but the system started falling apart, and then fear. I'm a Serb, I might not like Croats, but so what? But then I don't know what's really going on in Croatia and what the Croats are planning. And they don't know what I'm planning. So I assume the worst, and I act on the basis of the assumption worst, and they do the same thing, and that's called a conflict spiral. So by mitigating nationalism through regional institutionalization, a space for other traditionally marginalized categories of people also emerge. So I guess in terms of, to conclude here, in terms of what liberal democratic participation means, living in a world without fear. That we have a liberal democratic, one way to understand liberal democratic political system is a system that people interact with each other with fear being as minimal a feature of social interaction as possible. And Europeanization minimizes fear because it makes transparency and communication easier, much easier among the national peoples of Europe. And it includes you still get Europe, you still get nationalism, but it's in the form of Euroscepticism, but it's less likely to trigger reactions about, well, we have to prepare for the worst, because who knows what Marine Le Pen will do. I mean, everybody knows France is in the Eurozone. So even if she wins the election next year, if I'm a German suspicious of the French, it's going to be hard for me to believe that they're really going to do something that's going to destroy the French economy as well as the German economy. It does happen. I mean, when Yugoslavia fell apart, Serbia fought like 5 wars. Their income per person dropped 50% over the course of 10 years. So I don't want to overestimate the extent to which economic interests motivate people to cooperate with each other. because if they're afraid, they'll dump money. They'll sacrifice material well-being to defend themselves if they think they're under threat. But Europe is much more than just money. It's, this open method of coordination, informal best practices, all the institutions, the European Parliament elections, the European Parliament, the European Commission, how they're all structured, the Council of Ministers, the Erasmus program, students studying abroad. I mean, it's all about facilitating and encouraging transparency and communication among the peoples of Europe. So, do you have any questions? If no,
it's not a question, but I'm wondering. Yeah, this is actually a question. I'm wondering if you actually do not agree, if you do not think that my definition, which I researched, for liberal democracy is not logical.
No. I'm just trying to. It's
because
logical.
I want to change because I feel like this.
No,
that's
it's
where
okay.
issues start.
It's okay. No, I was just trying to relate these different ideas and concepts to each other to show how they're, because that's always been a factor, for me when I was studying political science. You try to get people to agree on what the definition of democracy. I mean, you would think that in political science, there would be a definition of democracy. There's no accepted final definition of democracy that everybody accepts, or the state. We talk about it all the time in political science and try to get people to agree on what the definition, or nationalism. What is that? I was just trying to show you how I can link with my theoretical framework that I try to use in class, how I can understand what you're doing in terms of what I talk about. Because, I bring my theoretical perspectives, which is different from the theoretical perspectives in this book. I mean, these people don't have a clear theory of what nationalism is. I don't think they do. They know it's a big problem, it's a big issue, but they don't know how to talk about, so I'm just trying to show you that that's how we can link together the different ideas and concepts that we've talked about the last 15 weeks, so that so yeah, I mean, because and try to make it in a way that makes sense to people's lives. I mean, you have to talk to your grandparents, but they could probably tell you what it's like under Park Chung-hee here. Now, there's certain things you better not say, and there's still certain things you better not say. You better not say, I think North Korea is a great place and I love Kim Jong-un. He should. If you say that, you can get in trouble. If you try to access North Korean websites, so I mean, so fear, there's still a little bit of that here. Right? I mean, we say certain things. There's certain things you can't say. You can't say that. I got to be careful because this is being recorded. See, fear. I'm fearful, so I'm not going to say it. I'm going to censor myself. There was a story about a professor, a Korean professor, and she made some kind of comment about what was going on with the comfort women, and that it was more complicated than it was typically portrayed in the media. And she got fired. This Korean professor. So there's certain things you can't say, right? And that's a little element of fear there.
I need to restructure my essay again.
No, I'm just saying that, for example, that's one way I'm just trying to show how, like I told you, when I grade the essay, I like to read the essay and I like to get a new idea. I like to read it and say, yeah, I didn't think about it that way. That's when I really like. And of course, the other thing is, as I mentioned, the grading criteria, like be careful about making wrong statements, because the Scottish did not vote to leave. They didn't vote for independence. They voted for whether or not there should be devolution. In other words, should they reestablish the regional parliament for Scotland? That's what they voted for. So don't make wrong statements. And then, and so, You can look it up on Wikipedia. I mean, there's a, you know,
Yeah, on the notes that you gave us, there's a link for it.
yeah,
Uh,
you know, so,
but I haven't gone into detail about it because I was just looking in the book.
uh-huh,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. If I want to make a statement, I might have to look at it again.
yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about here, Scottish independence. Let's see what comes up here. So then I gotta stop share and I gotta go back to share screen again, go here, share. And so like there's this home rule movement. There was already had it. They had a devolution referendum in '79. There was second devolution referendum, independence referendum.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just the basic information. So that's all I'm saying is that basically, that's why I was talking about liberal democracy, in terms of, and make sure you're using site information from at least three different chapters. Don't go over, more than 550 words, not counting references and titles and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's over that. I don't think my word counts are over.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Not now, but if I have a question while I'm editing my essay, can I send you an email?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Hmm?
And I'll send you the link to the YouTube
Video, yeah.
okay.
Recording one. Yes,
All
yes.
right. Okay. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thank